good with it? Welcome back to the Collective Clips where we really get it in, right? Like and subscribe, hit that notification bell, turn your notifications onto all so that you can get abreast of all the good and great content that I'm bringing right here on the Collective Clips. And we're going to get into a story. As you can tell by that thumbnail right there, we're really dipping in today. So, Mad Chad, the white elephant. Who would have ever thunk it, huh? Who would have ever thought of that name? And what does it mean? And what is it? Now, I talked to Dubs, my homeboy, this morning, and he told me about a video that he was going to do concerning YTS. The Herman G. Stark facility. That was one of the most dangerous. That was a mini prison. That's what we call it. That was the next step into going to prison if you were in the youth authority. That was a gladiator school, but not even that. More so, it was a training ground. You were right down the street from Chino Prison. You were getting arrested by Chino Prison. We heard a lot of stories about YTS. Now, there's going to be a lot of people that were there in YTS that will tell you that Norteños never walked the main line there, that they were just in the rock, which is basically their oil, their administrative segregation. And that's truth, man. That's facts. Nobody wanted to go there, especially if you were from Northern California, because these guys were the top of the top. Okay, they were the guys that were basically had graduated from other youth authorities and were now going to prison. They were on their way, and this was their training grounds in Southern California, located in Chino, California. So, Norteños never wanted to go there. That was the end of the rainbow. That was not the reading rainbow. That was the real rainbow. That was not the Aitu rainbow. That was the real one, right? So people didn't want to go that route. But there was a northern facility. Just like in prison, the two notorious prisons that are talked about constantly, well, now it's Salinas Valley, but prior to Salinas Valley was always Pelican Bay and High Desert. These were the who's who of what's what that were there. This was the stronghold for the brass. This was the stronghold for those that had basically graduated to that level. And anybody who was anybody, was either in High Desert Prison or, of course, Pelican Bay. Now, you need to understand that in the youth authority, we had our equivalent. And our equivalent was YTS in Southern California. And of course, Chad, the youth facility in Northern California, located right there in Stockton. Now, I did time in Carl Holton. And the makeup of Carl Holton was there's 4 youth authorities that were all together, but separated. There was OH Close, which were youngsters, rowdy motherfuckers that were always rioting and fighting and doing their thing. When you're young and you're dumb and you're just basically in the mix, what do you expect? But these were young kids. There was a lot of schooling going on there. Of course, the younger you were, the more rowdy you were, the more involved you were. And then, of course, they had Carl Holton, which is the facility I went to, which was more laid back. People were getting their shit together. You've already been to other places, or maybe not. But a lot of guys that were at that facility, at that institution, just wanted to program and get on. We're just trying to get out. It was our next step into getting out and figuring out what we were going to do with our lives. That was the last place I ultimately ended up and paroled from. Then you had DeWitt Nelson. DeWitt Nelson, I'm not going to say there wasn't solid homeboys there, because there was. They sent a lot of solid Norteños and Southsiders to DeWitt Nelson, and everybody strived to go to 2 places. One was DeWitt Nelson, the other was Ventura, because they were trying to knock a torta. That was a co-ed facility with girls and boys, and everybody was trying to get over there to impregnate something, right? But at the same time, it was hard as hell to go there. Anyone that's ever been there will tell you one write-up and they'll kick you the fuck up out of there. You'll be right there in YTS, mad and sad at the world. But anyways, and then you had, of course, Chad. Mad Chad. And that's what I wanted to talk about today. Chadarian, right? Our equivalent up north to YTS. Now, a lot of knuckleheads got sent there. And I know it's the last facility to have closed, in the youth authority. But in my days in the 90s, it was somewhere that nobody wanted to go. It was rocking. When they first opened that facility, there was a death. There was people throwing off tears. It was guerra. It was war. It was on site. Everybody was on site in Mad Chad, the white elephant. It had several nicknames. Mad Chad, the white elephant. The buildings were all white with the teal blue. And it was designed that way. It was designed to tear your mind down. It was designed to break you. Every prison youth authority, the coloring is always the same. It's always a white with a teal, and it's meant to destroy your mentality. It's meant to tear you down. It's a dark, desolate place. It's a place you look around and you could see the boredom, you could hear the anguish, and you could feel the tension. Now, Chad was different. Chad wasn't meant to break you. Chad was a place that was meant to make you into the man you were going to be. That was the one place where you either decided, were you going to keep going down that path and ultimately either die or end up in prison? Because that's where you were headed. Or were you just going to break bread like Jesus said and say, you know what, I'm done. My flag, here, let me put it up. And that was a wrap. Most people didn't get that option. You know, most people, if you were already in a position to go to Chad, which was an 18-year and over facility, you know, you were already with the business. You were already programming. It was program time, most definitely. You know, in a menudo style. People were in there really fucking writing for what they claimed. You know, I had several homeboys that went to Chad. I never got the privilege of going to Chad. I always wanted to go to Chad to see what it was all about. I wanted to see if Chad was really what they said it was. You know, I had coming from Fred C. Nellis and then Preston, I already knew what a melee and a riot was. I already knew what it was to be outnumbered, to be basically abandoned down south and have to handle your business with whatever few homeboys you had. All these things I knew to be true. I had done it. You know, wasn't nothing new to me. I wasn't new to this. I was true to this. But at the same time, you know, you would think I'd be trying to go the good route and get out and start a family and things of that nature. But my mentality wasn't that. I wanted to defend the household. I wanted to fight side by side with my people. I wanted to help lead my people to the promised land. I wanted to help lead my people to the social status of equality. I wanted to help my people have our name stamped and recognized. You know, I was a Norteño through and through, and that's exactly what I encompassed. You know, as a kid, that's all I knew. That's all I was taught. My mentality was make them and break them, you know, never shake them. Shank them if you could. Get to them by any means necessary. Now, this place tripped me out because every story I ever heard was treacherous. You know, I had a homeboy that did a lot of time in Chad. He went 3 times back to the youth authority, and every time he caught a violation, he'd end up in Chad. They'd send him right back to the facility he left, and he started to gain a reputation. And he was a very well-known individual at Chad. And he told me about the way they used to get down, the way that the cops used to let the inmates run the asylum, the wards. You know, we were all wards of the court at that time. And the way that they used to let them run this facility was basically, it was a hands-on policy. Do what you gotta do. You know, if you come into contact with your enemy, get off. Believe the placas were going to be the first ones spreading the rumors if you didn't handle your business when you had the chance. Now, everybody was on site. Didn't matter if you were a brother, a Crip, a Blood, a Kumi. Didn't matter if you were a Wood, you were white, you were from the South, the North, or a Perro Chato, a Fresno Bulldog. Everybody didn't like everybody. And that's just the way that place went. Everything I had ever heard about that place is what made me want to go. See, at that time in my life, I wanted to be involved in the reindeer games. I wanted to be involved in the frivolousness and what was going on. Now you say to yourself, oh, if you wanted to be so involved, why didn't you want to go down south to YTS? Well, YTS was a whole different level. See, over there, they'll kill you, right? In Chad, from anything I heard, it was just a lot of fighting, a lot of gang banging, and that was my mentality at that time. You know, I wasn't trying to lose my life. I was willing to sacrifice if I had to, but I wasn't trying to. You know, I had already been stabbed up to this point, battery packed on several occasions, hit with chairs, flying objects, things of that nature. You know, if you went to the youth authority in the 90s and you didn't come out with a fucking permanent scar or a lump on your head like this one that goes like this, like Conehead on me, then you definitely weren't really in the mix, putting in that work, doing your thing. You were just kicking on back in programming. And nobody wanted to be labeled a programmer. Everybody wanted to be labeled a writer, or anybody wanted to be labeled, you know, a gangster. We were all striving for that respect of what that gangsterism encompasses. So my homeboy tells me about Chad, and he says that one day, you know, he's in a building, and this building was basically like the whole. It was a lockdown building. They would bring everybody out one cell at a time. But the way that they had it was they'd have one cell of Northerners, one cell of Southerners, one cell of Bulldogs, so on and so forth. And they would bring each cell out, and they would have the day room, and they would have these chairs in a circle. And everybody would come out with their hand, with basically a belt around them, with their hands handcuffed to the side of this belt, and they would have leg shackles on. But you know, if you have leg shackles, you got about a 2-foot wide stance distance. And they'd bring each cell out, and usually everybody would wait till they brought everyone out because they already knew the Placa was going to leave the building or go up in this tower. As soon as the Placa would turn his back and do what he had to do, these guys would jump up and get off. There would be a whole lot of kickboxing going on. Well, on this particular day, the homeboy made what is known as a cuff key. Now, I don't know if you've heard other prison channels talk about it, but cuff keys are quite easy to make. And they can be made out of a lot of different things. Now, I'm not going to sit here and show you how to make them or tell you how to make them. Let's just say they were being made by people that were constantly in handcuffs. You always had to have a cuff key on you and be ready, because you never knew when you were in a position where someone else would slip the cuffs or someone else did and you'd be asked out. You better be good with that motherfucking bobby pin or that cuff key, homie. Straight up. You better be willing to handle your business as well and be properly secured with something. So anyways, the homeboys from his cell, they went out with pieces, him and his cellie. And there was a guy that they were targeting, and it was a white guy. It was a white guy that basically rode with the Southerners and always disrespected the Northerners through the doors. Now, they had been wanting to get this guy for a long time, but it seemed like for some reason he was always at the infirmary or was always at school or he was always in a position where they couldn't get him. Everybody that tried to fucking work him and rock him, they just couldn't get to him. And this guy would talk a lot of shit. Now, he was in the oil basically, or in that building for smashing a Northerner. He hit a Northerner with the tray. And everybody wanted this guy. But it's like that in youth authority and prison. The word travels. And everybody is targeting this one guy, but you can't seem to get hands on him. You can't seem to lay eyes on him. He's always able to wiggle. And that's what was going on with this guy. Well, anyways, it was time for program. And they already knew that the Bulldogs were planning an attack. The Bulldogs at this time, there was heavy friction with the Norte Bulldogs. Like I said, everybody was going at it, but they knew the Bulldogs were going to get off. But they weren't really targeting the Perros. They were targeting this white guy. And if he came out of his cell, they were going to hit him. So what happens is, he's in the first cell in the corner. They bring him and his cellie out. Now, his cellie was just a regular white boy that just happened to be in there on circumstance. But this guy was supposed to be high-powered. He was already all tatted down, looked like he did time in Susanville. Was really with the business. He was considering himself a skinhead. And at that time, nobody liked skinheads. I'm just going to be honest with you, brother. They had a bias against the heads, right? Oi, oi. So anyways, these guys go walking down and they sit down in these chairs. The next cell to open were the brothers, right? Now, the way the brothers worked, man, is there was more beef going on there with Crips and Bloods from Northern California than anything. You had the Garden Blocks going at it with Oak Park. Of course, you have 44G Stockton going at it with guys out of Manteca and them areas, Modesto. So the Crips and Bloods were going at it back in these days. There was a lot of peace. There was a lot of, I guess the guys from LA had more of a peace treaty going on rather than the guys from up north in Northern California, the NCs, and of course the Bloods from up north. But that's just how it was going down at that time. So they came out, and the way they were is if the SAs wanted to handle their business, they'll jump back and let the SAs handle their business. If their enemies came out, man, and they were tripping on them, they'd get off too. You know, nobody was a punk and nobody was going to slouch or fall back. Motherfuckers were about their business. Like I said, this was the top of the top from Northern California. Whereas in YTS, the Southerners were doing their thing up north. The Northerners were holding their own. So Northerners came out next. So the homeboy comes out and they see the white guy. Now they knew the Federals were probably going to try to move on them. And everybody at that time had cuff keys. So that's what was going on at that particular time. Was instead of kickboxing, they had elevated to making cuff keys. Someone along the line came that laced everyone up. And so everybody was slipping their cuffs and getting off, you know? And like I said, by the time the cops got there, cops didn't really care. They were letting you handle your business. They figured, hey, let these guys just handle their business, get it out of their system. Eventually they would calm down. Little did they know, man, more and more and more fresh breath was coming. More soldiers were coming, man, and it was going to be a constant war. It was, no one was stopping. No one could break it down. There was no tapping out, Conor McGregor. What the fuck? None of that was happening. Everybody was ready to go till you couldn't go no more, till the wheels fell off. Tape them back up and keep on rolling. And that's just how that was. So anyways, from what the homie tells me right there in Chad, you know, it was dangerous. It was dangerous because everybody was strapped up. Everybody was prepared. People would come out with battery packs. Now, you got searched when you're coming out your cell, and of course, you got cuffed up. But still, there's ways to wiggle, right? People would come out with ingenious type of weaponry, and everybody had something on them. People were trying to take lives there. They weren't just trying to swing and fight and hit you. They were trying to hurt you. So, of course, the whole plan was to get with this white guy's program. So he's out there chilling with the cellie, talking to him. Blacks come out. Of course, they have no conversation for each other. And then they open the Northerner's door. So the homie says he searched, and he already has a piece cheeked, secured. For those of you that don't know what cheeked is, go to the I2 program. They'll teach you, right? So anyways, he has a fucking a piece cheeked. It's about a 4 or 5 inch little piece of metal that he had broke off one of the bunks. And he's secure. He's ready. He's ready to do what he has to do. Like I said, they've been trying to get to this white guy for a minute. The white guy's not dumb though. You know, I'm sure he had him a piece and he was ready for whatever. And the homeboys don't know if he has a cuff key at this time, and they're not really tripping. It is what it is. They're going to hit him. They're going to hit his celly, and it's going to be like that. And anyone else that wants it can get it as well. The blacks ain't tripping. They are already up to par. There's wheelers that have been shot, and they already know just stand back. Let us get ours, right? Stand out the way so we can handle business. So they're like that. So the homeboy says that when they come down, this white guy jumps up, facts, right? And tells the cops, hey, I need to take a piss. You have to take me back to my cell. I need to take a piss. Now the cop is right there as they're walking these guys down. They're bringing two cops to one inmate. And they tell him, hey, you know what I mean? You're going to have to fucking wait till everyone's out here before we'll put you back in your cell. They already know what it is. He's trying the escape plan. He thinks he's Arnold Schwartz or whoever, and they're trying to do the escape plan. Him and his celly both, all of us, one has chorro and the other one has diabetes and pisses a lot, right? They're trying to make up any type of excuse because they see the Norteños' facial expressions. It's about to go down. You can tell when someone's looking at you, they're looking through you, they got that look, that Michael Myers look, that Jason. You already know what's about to get off with his head. You know, that farmer's about to rip your head off. And that's just what it is. So anyway, so the homeboy comes. He immediately drops his piece and gets to uncuffing. He hands the thing, bam, he's uncuffed. Like I said, the cuffs were on the side. He's uncuffing, doing his thing. He fucking, the homeboy shoots him a little thing. He uncuffs himself, and they get to getting on this, doing some whip ass on these white guys. Now, this guy tells me the guy gets up and tries to fight back. He's trying to headbutt, and they're hitting him in the head, scraping his head. Blood's everywhere. Cops come running. At this time, the cops were letting the Southerners out. Southerners are, one of them's handcuffed on the tier facing the wall. The other one's getting cuffed. The Southerners take off running, and everyone's thinking that they're going to assist the white guys. One has one hand out of the cuff, and the cops are fucking scared. They haven't seen this go down like this in a minute, right? And these Southerners take off down, and they hit down the tier, and they rush the white guys too. So now all the Mexicans were on the white guys. Now you ask yourself, why would the Southerners participate and assist the Northerners? They weren't assisting the Northerners. These white guys, or this particular white guy, had disrespected Mexicans, period. And one thing you needed to know about youth authority or prison, if you're Mexican, let's say you're Mexican, and it doesn't matter if you're North or South, disrespects to the Mexicans will be handled swiftly. So, of course, the Southerners were waiting to get their hands on this guy, and they seen the perfect opportunity to handle it. So when they had the Northerners tackled and maced up and everything, the Southerners got to whipping on some ass too. Needless to say, this wood, brother, got his whole kindling lit up, right? He got lit on fire, and that was that. But it was just another story of something that happens in Chad. I've heard plenty of stories of people getting thrown off the tier there. People getting stabbed, booked. I know bodies were caught. Chad was a ruthless place that a lot of people didn't want to go. And then there was a group and gaggle of Northerners and I'm sure Southerners that did want to go. We did want to participate. I always wanted to see it. Now that I'm older, I'm glad I never got the opportunity because I probably would have picked up a case. A lot of people were picking up cases. A lot of people were getting shipped out of there straight to Tracy Prison, catching an M number. For those of you that don't know what an M number is, it was a CYA number. When you caught a case, man, you went and picked it up, or you were doing violations, things of that nature. M numbers, there was a lot of them. But anyways, that was our equivalent in Northern California, Mad Chad to YTS. Now, there's plenty of stories you're going to hear about Chad, and over the years, I heard it softened up, and it got to programming a little bit. I know it was the last facility to be closed as far as the youth authority. But in my days, man, it clearly was the white elephant, man. It was Mad Chad. It was a place that people were scared to go to, and people that were there were trying to get out by any means. So with that being said, I just wanted to throw it out there, give you a quick little rundown of Mad Chad, our equivalent to high desert in Northern California as the youth. You know, a lot of people sleep on these youth stories, these YA stories that I tell. And Gunner, why do you talk more about YA than prison? Man, I have more memory of YA, and more shit went down in YA than it did in prison. In prison, I could talk about making pruno. You know, I could talk about going to the chow hall and what we ate that day. I could talk about chilling with my celly, using our hot pots to make bomb burritos. But there wasn't too much tension like that going on 3s and 4 yards because everybody knew if it went down, it really went down and it was serious. So it's not like every day someone's getting murdered and killed. But let me tell you, when it does rock, and it does, and I will tell those stories eventually, but I tell a lot of YA stories because, man, it rocked every single day. Motherfuckers had everyone on site, and it was an ugly situation. With that being said, thank you for tuning in to the Collective Clips today. Make sure you go watch Gunner's Collective. Go support Dubs on the Dub S channel as well as the Dubs channel. And support all the raza here on YouTube. Even the ones that don't like me, truly support them, man, because they're trying to make a way for themselves. If they have to use my name to get it, well, that's because the wind blows when it comes to the gun. Thumbs up or thumbs down. Heavy's going to be the head. Well, today I ain't wearing no crown. You know, I went slick with it. But at the same time, you already know what it is, man. Like and subscribe, and thank you very much. Raza, for the people, by the people.